briefing during the visit of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi to the United States. This is the second leg of his visit in New York. He's just addressed the to give a sense of his visit so far, and particularly focusing on today morning's speech address to the United Nations General Assembly. During the visit of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi to the United States, this is the second leg of his visit in New York, and he's just addressed the United to give a sense of his visit so far, and particularly focusing on today morning's speech address to the United Nations General Assembly. We have the privilege here of having with us Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Foreign Secretary of India. Also joining us are Shri T.S. Tirumurthy, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of India to the United Nations in New York, and also Mr. Prakash Gupta, Joint Secretary looking after United Nations in the Ministry of External Affairs. I would request Foreign Secretary Sir to say a brief opening remarks, and then we'll take a few questions. Please do note, Prime Minister will be leaving New York shortly after this, so we may be a little tight in questions. I see some people already raising hands. Please hold on while his opening remark. Oh, okay. Okay. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Anandam, and I want to thank our Ambassador, Permanent Representative, joining us also. Namaskar and good morning. As you're aware, the Prime Minister just addressed the high-level segment of the 76th United Nations General Assembly. This is on the theme of the General Assembly's debate, which is building resilience through hope to recovery from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people, and revitalize the United Nations. Prior to his address, the Prime Minister was greeted by the President of the General Assembly, Mr. Abdullah Shahid. You would recall that the President of the General Assembly visited India on the 21st of August, on the 24th of July, and he had at that time called on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, when he met the President of the General Assembly after he assumed office, he's just assumed office recently, congratulated him on his presidency of hope. The message of the Prime Minister was very well received, his congratulatory message, and I am told that there was very positive resonance on this concept of the presidency of hope. You are aware that the Prime Minister's address to the General Assembly marks the culmination of a very successful, a very comprehensive tour of the United States. The Prime Minister was in Washington, D.C., where he held a bilateral meeting with the U.S. President, President Joe Biden. He also met Vice President Kamala Harris. He participated in the meeting of the Quad Leaders Summit, which was attended by the Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia, hosted by the President of the United States. And he also separately had meetings with his counterparts from Japan and Australia. In Washington, he met a number of CEOs of major US corporates. So all in all, it has been a short but very, very comprehensive, very useful and visit, which allowed for extensive high-level interactions. His address in the United Nations, which you would have heard, has focused on some important themes. The first theme, of course, was that democracies can deliver, democracies have delivered. The Prime Minister spoke about an array of flagship programs and initiatives in India that have delivered very successfully to hundreds of millions of our citizens, whether it is in the aspect of enabling them to enter into the banking sector by allowing people to open bank accounts, whether it is in terms of participating in health schemes that provide for quality health services to a very large number of our people, health insurance, low-cost housing for millions of our citizens, being converted from landless to landowners, as the Prime Minister said. Also, very strong emphasis that the Prime Minister laid on this issue of technology. Technology has delivered for us. We have used technology in very many areas of our developmental activity that has enabled us to reach out to people in all parts of the country, every segment of society. And that, I think, has been a very important message that has been conveyed. He also drew the analogy of our efforts in the health sector. Health is an overriding priority, obviously, in the general discourse in the United Nations at this point of time. The Prime Minister spoke about our use of technology in the health sector, especially with regard to the ability to immunize hundreds of millions of our citizens in the COVID-19, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, through the CoWIN platform, which is one of the finest, most, I would say, well-conceived digital platforms. You would recall that when CoWIN was introduced to the international community through the CoWIN Global Conclave, 142 countries participated. It has been put as an open source digital platform available to countries around the world. The Prime Minister also spoke about the success of our vaccination program. 800 plus million plus of our citizens have already received vaccination doses. We are looking at accelerating this, and the Prime Minister emphasized the fact that the success of this entire enterprise was also based on the organizational aspect of it, including CoWIN, of course. And of course, the fact that we have today come out with cutting-edge technologies. We have our indigenous vaccines. We also have developed a DNA vaccine, which will be introduced for children, which is a touch vaccine. We have come up with mRNA technology. So we are also at the cutting edge of vaccine development. And Prime Minister referred to India as a manufacturing hub for vaccines for the entire world. In that context, of course, he spoke of the fact that we had announced our decision to again recommence exports of vaccines from month of October. Again, this is extremely well received in the UN and the international community. The Prime Minister spoke of global value chains in the context of Atmanirbhar Bharat, resilient supply chains that we are developing. Important emphasis was given on climate change, in which the Prime Minister pointed out that we ourselves had unilaterally gone in for a 450 gigawatt target by 2030. We were ahead in terms of meeting our expectations in the Paris Agreement, and that if we were to look at the gains that we would make in addressing the issue of climate change, it is because we have to answer the future generations. And the Prime Minister pointed out that it was important for us to ensure that we do the right thing now, so that our future generations don't question the fact that we hadn't done enough to make our planet both sustainable environmentally and something that is enduring. I think, again, when you talk about technology, the Prime Minister talked about science-based rational thinking applied to development. I think that is an important factor, that science and technology have dictated how we can best provide our development gains to as many of our people as possible, as effectively and as cost-effectively as possible also. And he also talked about, from that point of view, the development of incubators, a startup culture, the importance and promise of innovation among the youth of India, the development of satellites, 75 satellites to commemorate our 75th anniversary of independence. On international issues, you would have noticed that the Prime Minister referred to the most pressing issue of today again, which is the topic of conversation of almost every head of state and government that has spoken at the United Nations, the situation in Afghanistan. He said that countries using terrorism as a tool should note that this is a double-edged sword. I think that's a very important point to make, that you cannot think of encouragement to terrorism, because that can come back to bite you. In the context of Afghanistan, the Prime Minister referred to the fact that the plight of women, children, minorities should not be forgotten, that these basic human rights of people of Afghanistan are important. They need the help of the international community, and it is incumbent on the international community to come forward to speak in one voice on some of these issues. that are important to all of us. The Prime Minister did speak about the fact that we shouldn't abuse our natural resources. This is a legacy for the future. This is a trusteeship of nature that has been bestowed on us, that our culture does, Indian culture and ethos is one that is close to nature, that we live in harmony with nature, and that is something that's important in today's context of dealing with climate change, dealing with some of the environmental issues that we face globally. And he also spoke about the UN Security Council, in particular our contribution to the issue of maritime security in the UN Security Council. As you know, we were held the presidency of the Security Council, a very successful presidency. Our permanent representative has to take a great amount of that credit for a presidency that outlined and shaped thinking in many new areas, the highlight of which was the Prime Minister's chairing the open debate of the Security Council on the issue of maritime security. This is the first time an Indian Prime Minister has chaired a meeting of the UN Security Council. It's also the first time India has, or any country for that matter, has successfully steered a UN Security Council debate on the issue of maritime security and come up with the outcome document, which today is being referred to by many countries as being the guiding, I would say, principles on this issue. We also, of course, focused on the issue of technology and peacekeeping, the important issue of counterterrorism, and in that context, of course, when we talk about international issues that are important to the global community, the Prime Minister referred to the COVID-19 and its origins, the case of the ease of doing business. I think that's important when we talk about the need for greater investment and technology flows, the issue of good governance. He called upon the UN to provide global order, global law, and global values. I think if you look at the statement, one or two things become apparent. The first, of course, is that India, by its own developmental paradigm and the success of its developmental efforts, is really, in many senses, providing development to the entire world, because we represent 1/6 of humanity. Our development, our progress, our success is the world's success. The second, of course, is the intention to share with the international community our best practices, our experiences, and in that context, the Prime Minister referred to the global common good and the fact that India has always looked to seeing how we could both support and assist the larger global community in whatever we do. And in that context, of course, technology and other issues were important in terms of focus. Of course, when we talk about development, then we talk about several models of development. I did give you some examples in terms of COVID, in terms of vaccine development that can also be successfully shared with the rest of the world. That, I think, was the larger theme of what we spoke about. Of course, the PM's address helped us to project our long-standing and growing credentials as a South-South development partner in the context of the India-UN Development Partnership Fund. Here again, I think important steps have been taken to see how we can work with the UN in an outreach that would enable some of our developmental successes and models that we have evolved within our country to be shared as effective and cost-effective practices that can be adopted elsewhere in the world. Financing for development, our commitment to the idea of global partnership under SDG 17, including on climate change. And of course, a number of countries in their addresses have referred to India, in particular our development partners in the context of COVID-19 assistance, in the context of development programs, and we thank them, we appreciate their sentiment, and we continue to look forward to a very close partnership with countries all over the world in the furthering in the extension of what we are doing within our own country. Perhaps I'll stop here. I don't know if the permanent if you want to add anything. I think you have to go and you see off the Prime Minister, fully understand.
Thank you, sir, for a comprehensive overview of that as we say goodbye to Permanent Representative Ambassador Tirumurthy. Okay, I see hands. We'll start here. Yeah, please. Microphones here, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Lenka White. I'm from the Mainichi newspaper, and I cover the United Nations. I wanted to ask on Afghanistan. According to you, what are the next steps if Taliban will not have an inclusive government, and when they should be taken? And second question, you spoke about women and children, that their rights need to be protected. How do you think we can ensure that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think we'll take the questions in. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you. Yoshita Singh with Press Trust of India. In his bilateral meetings with the President and also with Japan and Australia, did the Prime Minister highlight the need for unity in dealing with the Taliban situation in Afghanistan, given that we've seen there are divisions in the Security Council, whether it's from Russia or China, on how the situation should be dealt with, and also to ensure that the Afghan soil is not used as a terror launch pad for in the region? Thank you.
Siddhant.
So Siddhant from WION, what kind of assurances India gets from the bilaterals from US when it comes to Pakistan support to terror and China as an aggressor during this entire 3-day visit?
Okay. Yeah, please, ma'am. Please.
Sir, Maha Siddiqui from CNN News 18. Sir, the G4 countries recently released a statement once again asking for the need of UN reforms. What is the biggest hurdle in the reforms, sir? Why isn't it happening despite the fact that the UN fails to represent realities of the modern world?
Yes, please.
Mr. Foreign Secretary, the Prime Minister mentioned in his speech about a rule-based order. Quite clearly that would be seen as an indication to China's aggressive behavior. Would you subscribe to that?
Last one then, yeah.
So, Reena Bhardwaj from ANI. Now, President Biden did discuss with Prime Minister Modi that India should have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. Was there any similar sentiment that India gathered through the meetings or throughout this week at Anga?
So, would you take the floor here?
I think the first question was on Afghanistan. I think you drew attention to women and children and what can be done by the international community. You saw that in the Prime Minister's address to the UN just a short while ago. He laid very strong emphasis on the international community speaking out in one voice and also taking responsibility for a number of issues. But he mentioned in particular the issue of the human rights of women, children, minorities. I think that is an important issue from our perspective. It is an important issue from the perspective of the international community. If you look at what the international community is demanding of the ruling dispensation in Afghanistan, and I think that was the second part of your question, it is encapsulated in Resolution 2593 of the UN Security Council, which incidentally was adopted under our presidency of the Council. Resolution 2593 demands that Afghanistan's territory not be used for terrorism to the detriment of any of its neighbors or any other country. It also enjoins on them to respect the human rights of women, children and minorities. It asks for unimpeded access for humanitarian assistance. And it also, I think, asks that there should be an inclusive, negotiated political settlement. These are the basic, I would say, requirements of the international community. Until and unless those requirements are met in part or in full, I think the international community will continue to wait and watch the situation. For the international community, this is an important area of fulfillment. Certainly, India will work with its partners, both regional partners and global partners, in ensuring that many of these important aspects, including, the evacuation of Afghan nationals who want to leave the country, are fulfilled. These are very important requirements, and these are also, in some senses, commitments that the ruling dispensation had made when they first entered Kabul, and we would like to see that those obligations and commitments being fulfilled. Yoshita, I think you had a similar question. I think I've basically answered what you were talking about. Certainly within the Quad there was a strong sentiment. You would have seen it in the joint statement that the Quad has issued, that Afghanistan is a high priority, that many of the elements that I mentioned in Resolution 2593 are reflected in the joint statement. This is in some senses a fairly accurate a description of the conversation that took place among the leaders of the Quad group. And I think unity when it comes to Afghanistan is very, very pertinent, and I think all the Quad leaders recognized that our interests converged and our interests were really reflected in the points that I made earlier. And from that point of view, I think the Quad was very, it was a very useful meeting in putting together the thinking and the objectives that the Quad leaders had in Afghanistan, bringing them on the same page. I think, Siddhant, you spoke about Pakistan's support for terrorism. Again, you would have seen that in all the meetings the Prime Minister had, beginning with US leadership, there was suo motu recognition of the concerns that Pakistan represents as a country that has, in many senses, both supported and nurtured cross-border terrorism, including in Afghanistan and from Afghanistan. There was a sense that that situation needs to be watched very carefully, and that the international community needs to ensure that Pakistan fills its obligation as a member of the Committee of Nations in its basic obligations, that it does not in any way work against the detriment of its neighbors or any other country in the world. And that again has been reflected, if you see strong statements both in the bilateral joint statement as well as the joint statement of the quadrilateral leaders summit, reflects those sentiments quite significantly. I think Maha's question was on the G4 and whether the UN has failed to fulfill its obligations. The United Nations, of course, continues to be a body that represents the legal and de jure interests of countries from all over the world and its membership. It is the forum in which countries can come to seek both a projection of their let's say larger global engagements, but also to resolve many of the issues that are pertinent to them. In many cases, we have seen that the UN has not lived up to its commitments, whether it is in the area of international peace and security, whether it's in the area of healthcare, epidemics and pandemics. And I think in all of these, there is obviously a need to look at how we can reform the UN in general and the UN Security Council in particular. Reformed multilateralism has been India's main theme, and we will continue to work towards the reformed United Nations during our stint as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. It's also interesting to note that many other countries also share our sentiments. We have a very large measure of support. You heard President Biden when he said, President Biden, this is not public messaging, but he did mention that India should have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. I think that is reflected in the joint statement, and this is something that continues to be a view held by not just the US but other Quad partners and many other countries. In the UNGA debate this time, you would have seen that after the United States in President Biden's statement mentioned this factor, but there was also Portugal that supported India for a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. A permanent seat as well as reform of the UN Security Council remains India's top priority, as I mentioned. There is a sense that under the new President of the General Assembly, there would be a thrust to the process, the intergovernmental process and we will move forward to text-based negotiations, which we have been talking about, with concrete outcomes in a fixed time frame. We believe that India's 75th anniversary coincides with the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. This is the time that the UN should fulfill its long-standing obligations to reform for the benefit of the global community. I think the question by Reena was again on permanent seat. To some extent, I have responded to what you asked, and
his question is on a rule-based order for China.
A rules-based order, yes, that was a recurring theme. The Quad stands for a rules-based international order. The Quad stands for a free, open, transparent, inclusive, prosperous Indo-Pacific region, and in that context, the right to freedom of navigation, use of global commons, international order is definitely there. This is a general sentiment, is a general principle. I would not say that it's directed to any country in particular. We believed in principles, we believe in values, and we believe that the Quad as a group must work with its Indo-Pacific partners, with ASEAN as its centrality, to achieve those objectives.
So thank you very much for that comprehensive overview. I think because of time constraints, we'll have to move now. I thank you all for your participation today morning. Appreciate it. Good day.
Thanks a lot, and see many of our friends back in India.
There we were listening in to the Indian Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla briefing the media on the key takeaways from the Indian Prime Minister's address at the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly, as we have been decoding bit by bit the key highlights of that address, ranging from climate change to tackling COVID-19 crisis to vaccine diplomacy, India's vaccine initiatives, and the all-important Afghanistan crisis finding a prominent mention in the Indian Prime Minister's address there. The Foreign Secretary also highlighting another crucial aspect of that address, which was regarding the United Nations reform, something that India has made its stance absolutely clear on. The Prime Minister of India finished his address at the United Nations General Assembly just a short while back. He spoke on a number of pressing issues, from regional to global. He did not hesitate in calling out the problematic elements or even referring to the United Nations reforms, where he said that it is important for the United Nations to stay relevant, to improve its effectiveness. The Prime Minister began his address talking about India and democracy, highlighting India's role on the global stage, saying when India grows, the world grows. When India transforms, the world transforms. The Prime Minister, as a part of that address, highlighted the identity of India as the mother of democracy and pointed out that a democracy can and has delivered. After speaking on a range of regional issues and emphasizing on developmental concerns, the Prime Minister then moved on to the global challenges. In this part of the address, there were a few veiled swipes. He did not name any country openly, like we've been saying, but the messages, the indications were quite clear. And our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibul, has been tracking all those developments very closely, was also present during the Indian Foreign Secretary's press briefing. Siddhant, one of the key takeaways that we have been highlighting has been the Prime Minister's emphasis on the United Nations reforms. That's something that India has been talking about for a while now and has found a prominent mention in the Indian Prime Minister's address that in itself tells us the significance of that issue for India.
Well, yes, that was a particular focus and unexpected lines, given that India has been talking about it for a long time. But it is the Chinese obstacle that is essentially not allowing that. We know that India has just recently been part of the G4 foreign ministers meeting, and the joint statement particularly emphasized on UN reforms, making sure that India is on the high table. India has the credentials in terms of geography, in terms of the population, in terms of the largest democracy as well, and focus will be on how to make sure that this entire process can be expedited. It can also happen through the General Assembly route, but we know that the United Nations Security Council is a much easier route, but there is a resistance from one country, one P5 member country. More and more countries are supporting India's bid, especially smaller countries. Portugal is another country that has supported in recent times India's bid for the UNSC. And focus will be on how it is a transparent process. It is a reflective of the world of 2021, not a world of 1945. We know that the current world order in terms of United Nations is emerged out of the World War II 1945 situation, and this obviously does not represent India. So India has been keen to talk about its credentials, and of course just not the UNSC reforms. The Indian Prime Minister talked about COVID crisis, how India is taking forward the vaccine initiative. There was emphasis on the origins of COVID. That is a significant statement by the Indian Prime Minister, which obviously talks about how the global governing institution like World Health Organization have failed to deal with this pandemic. Particular reference on terrorism, how there are countries, without taking names, he said they have been supporting terrorism, and of course Afghanistan is one of their main targets, how they are destabilizing Afghanistan. India, as the president of the UNSC in the month of August, was key to passing of a resolution on 30th of August that talks about how Taliban must fulfill its commitments, its words given on making sure that Afghanistan does not become a safe haven for international terror groups.
Right, Siddhant, you also posed a question to the Indian Foreign Secretary. The key takeaways from that response, if you can highlight for our viewers, the emphasis that India has laid on both regional and global issues.
Well, the Indian Foreign Secretary responded to Vivek's question on Pakistan, how starting from the American leadership, there was a particular realization and emphasis that Pakistan's action need to be monitored, especially in Afghanistan, how Pakistan should not continue with its duplicity, which is now well known in terms of dealing with terrorism, cross-border terrorism, how it should not in a sense destabilize Afghanistan further. It's already destabilized Afghanistan in a great extent. We know the ISI's role when it comes to the Taliban government formation. The ISI chief was in Kabul just days before government formation was to be announced, and the Taliban government having members of the Haqqani network, which is an international terror group. Also, out of more than 30 cabinet members, 17 are listed under the United Nations Security Council's international terror list. We also saw the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech being slammed by the Indian diplomat Sneha Dubey, who talked about how Pakistan holds the largest number of international terror groups. Also, she talked about the deplorable condition of minorities in the country, a particular emphasis on Bangladesh, the genocide committed by the Pakistani army in the then East Pakistan. So these were the focus areas, but a lot of assurances the Indian side has got in terms of the Pakistan's continued support to terrorism, and Pakistan essentially being a nuisance in the region by supporting terrorism as a state policy. The Indian Prime Minister obviously did not make any direct mention of Pakistan's name, but the message was clear, the signal was clear that Pakistan needs to act now. It needs to take action on terror groups in its territory and territories under its occupation, or else the world, of course, is waiting, especially like-minded countries, in isolating Pakistan. We have already seen how there hasn't been any phone conversation between the US President Joe Biden and the Pakistani leadership, the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. That shows that how miffed the the American leadership, the authorities are with Islamabad, because it's well known that Pakistan will continue with its duplicity. It has been doing so for the last 20 years and even before that, and now it looks like it's game over for Islamabad. Looking at the comments coming from Washington and New York as well. In Washington, both the Quad and the joint statement by India and US, without naming Pakistan, had a reference on countries supporting terrorism, and there needs to be a strong action.
Let's also talk about the veiled warning that's come in from the Prime Minister as a part of his address, Siddhant, where he talks about the need to tackle expansionism in the world's oceans. While referring to the climate change crisis, the Prime Minister then goes on to talk about how we need to keep expansionism in the oceans under check, which is more of a warning to China. And he has kind of, combined the issue of the climate change crisis and the implications of the expansionism in the oceans for the fight against climate change.
Yes, climate change was another key focus. And again, on expected lines, India has been taking a lead on International Solar Alliance. That's one project that has garnered a lot of support internationally. It's the first treaty-based organization that is based out of India, and it's basically a joint India-France project, but with a lot of Indian leadership's involvement. The Indian Prime Minister took a lead on International Solar Alliance, and it is taking a lead on a number of domestic areas like renewables. The Quad leadership agreed to support India's renewable energy project so that more and more people use renewables as a way of getting energy. Also, a particular focus has been in past few years, the Indian side talking about its Paris climate commitment, saying that it's not only fulfilling it, but also exceeding the Paris climate commitments it has made in past few years. But climate change, of course, will be focus area of India, given that how the Indian side has been very enthusiastic in leading this entire initiative against climate change. Glasgow summit is all set to begin in few weeks' time, and we saw that how the other summits, this has been largely a summit month, this being the last major summit of this month, there was emphasis on climate change in almost every summit we saw.
Right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Siddhant, thanks very much for getting us up to speed with the key takeaways from the Indian Prime Minister's address there, and also the press briefing that was given out by the Indian Foreign Secretary. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.